My name is Charles Iacono, and I am the president and CEO of the Green Beret Foundation.
So what inspired you to get involved with the nonprofit sector?
That's a great question. I was finishing up grad school, specifically business school, and I had the distinct pleasure of meeting at the time the senior vice president of advancement and strategic partnerships at JW. And he asked me what my plans were after business school. And I said, I was going to follow the track of just about every other MBA candidate and head to New York City and work in finance. And he looked at me and said, "Why would you ever want to do that?" I kind of chuckled. I said, "All right, I'll bite. What do you got?" And he asked the question. This was Vince Saley at the time, who I'm still very close with till this day. He said, "Have you ever thought about a career in the nonprofit marketplace, fundraising, building strong nonprofit organizations, raising capital for their campaigns and other endowment initiatives?" I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And so, to make a long story short, he introduced me to a couple of different people that he had worked with over the years. And I ended up taking a job with an incredible firm called CCS Fundraising, which is one of the largest fundraising firms in the globe. They specialize in capital campaigns, fundraising initiatives, endowment campaigns. So I served as a consultant in my first experience in the nonprofit space after I spent some time in government. And then after spending some time with CCS, moved in-house and just kind of fell in love with the ability to work for different communities and be exposed to really incredible groups of individuals who are working to try to make the world a better place.
So how did you get involved with the Green Beret Foundation?
Yeah, it's funny. So at the time I was working for the USO, which is its formal organization's name is the United Services Organization. They're one of the largest and oldest military service organizations in our country. It dates back to the Second World War. And when I joined the USO, like any good nonprofit professional or fundraising executive, I started to do some research to see what other organizations were out there, what ones were doing things great, what institutions, organizations were doing some unique things. And I stumbled across the Green Beret Foundation and their new website that they had just recently launched. And I saw that they had an e-commerce shop. And that was a big thing and still is a big thing in the MSO, VSO nonprofit space. And I wanted to see how the organization engaged with somebody that had no prior connection. So I bought something off the commerce shop. It was actually a challenge coin to kind of test the waters to see how they would engage with me. And from time to time, they would send me emails and, updates or impact reports or newsletters, which I thought was, was great. It was a great way to stay, abreast to what was going on in the Special Forces Regiment community. And really one day it just came across looking for our next president and CEO. So I looked at the job description once and kind of put my iPad down, and for the next 5 nights, looked at it, and my wife finally turned to me and said, "Are you going to apply for that job or what?" Because every night you stare at it and read it for about 25, 30 minutes, and you go to the website and you look back. But when are you going to actually submit an application? And at the time, I thought that there was no chance. I figured such a small, unique community would likely want to hire one of their own within. But after having the chance to meet the board and interview through a pretty long and arduous process, and kind of really lay out my plan and the vision that I have for the foundation, the board was excited to extend the offer, and I was ecstatic to accept the offer. So started officially on 17th of April 2023, and have never looked back.
Yeah, what is it like being the leader for all these special forces and their families?
Yeah. I would say I would classify myself more of as a collaborator. What the men and women in the regiment and their families do each and every day to protect our freedoms and how they support, the American people, and quite honestly, our allies across the country, and across the world. They're the true leaders. I like to think of myself as a collaborator. We're there to support people through our programs. And it's interesting. Our organization supports both the military active duty space as well as the veteran population, which is unique. Not a lot of organizations do that. So we're servicing individuals who served in the regiment back in Vietnam all the way until present days and everything in between it. So I love to collaborate. It's one of the most rewarding things about the job. One of the most rewarding things, quite honestly, about being in a nonprofit career space is the efforts that you get to go and kind of really take forward and bring new ideas to the table. But it is a distinct honor to answer your question. These are incredible individuals, and their families are incredible people. And it's just a privilege and an honor and a very humbling experience to be able to work on behalf of the Green Beret Foundation and the Special Forces community, because God knows they are truly special in a whole variety of ways, and we are there for them every step of the way.
So can you tell me a little bit about the foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting. The foundation was founded in 2009, and we have a whole series of programs. Obviously, as a foundation, right? Our business is to raise money, and our business is to raise money to then be able to make sure our programs and the vision that we have for our programs, in fact, become a reality. So we have 5 specific kind of gold standard programs that we offer. The first one is casualty support. That's for individuals who are serving in active duty space when they're wounded while they're either deployed or while they're training. Special Forces is, having never served myself, but having talked to now close to 1,000 Green Berets, both active and veteran status, they train as far to the edge as they can to replicate or to create the most realistic scenarios to ready them for their missions. So it's not uncommon for Green Berets to get injured in training exercises, as we've seen over the years, and most recently we've seen in other groups of or special facets of the military where we've lost individuals' lives in the course of training. Our casualty support program is to be there for the wounded Green Beret and their family. And we support them financially in that process, as well as individuals getting a Go Ruck bag. One of our board members, Jason McCarthy, is the founder and CEO of Go Ruck, former Green Beret. And that has essential gear for temporary overnight stays at a hospital or a hotel for some period of time. And, thankfully, in this last year, we've not had a tremendous amount of casualty support requests. And I always say that's a good thing, because that means guys aren't getting injured, in training or in combat, and their families aren't having to go through that. Our next program is health and wellness. And really that focuses in on supporting strength in mind, body, and spirit. Whether it be our veterans, the VA, the Veteran Administration's Next Ridgeline program that we provide and support, and guys transitioning out, and to make sure that their disability rating is reviewed appropriately and they get the right payment. In addition to that, we have an incredible family, the Marcanzano family, that supports us through the establishment of Andy's Fund, which is really our fund that focuses on mental health and suicide prevention and suicide awareness, helping guys to understand that if they're beginning to have suicidal ideations, that it's okay to reach out for help. We're actively trying to break the stigma that Green Berets, or any service member for that matter, has to remain or suffer in silence. We don't want them to be suffering in silence, and quite frankly, we don't want them to be suffering at all. So there's a very significant support system there through a lot of different programs. We have a lot of incredible partners that help guys get back on their feet, power through some of the challenges that they may be having, whether it's substance abuse or alcohol abuse, or mental health challenges such as suicidal ideations. I was asked when I first joined, how do you measure success? If you had a 2-year or a 20-year career path here, how would you measure success? And I very honestly and candidly said, if I can save or prevent one guy from taking his life, that's success to me. Obviously, we hope it's way more than one. And we hope we get to a point where we put ourselves out of a job, because the support mechanisms are there, and the DoD is hardwired that into their cadre of programs and services. But until that time, if that time ever comes, we will be there to support them in their health and wellness aspects. And really, Michael, the biggest challenge that I think we see is this post GWAT era where we see a lot of TBI,
Yeah.
traumatic brain injury, or PTS. A lot of struggles with that. We need to understand that it's the utmost importance of our cause to make sure guys heal correctly. Because if they can't be healed or they can't get the help that they need, they are never going to be able to transition successfully back into the civilian population. And we have a lot of veterans, a lot of guys that saw active duty combat during GWAT and the global war on terror.
Yeah.
I think is really just beginning to show the crux of what we as benevolent organizations will be supporting over the next 20 years. And that ranges anything from cancer to early onset dementia or Alzheimer's because of the traumatic brain injuries. So a lot of work to be done with that. And quite honestly, we are certainly headed in the right direction with a lot of positive partnerships, a lot of great synergies in the marketplace, as well as incredible families like the Marcanzanos that are supporting us and raising money, and other organizations that are raising money for us as well. And then in addition to that, it's family support, right? And so family support is so critical. And I say, there's the forward operating group, those who deploy, and then there's the team that stays back behind here stateside. And that's an important, critical part of the unit, the community. And so we recognize that we are there in every possible way that we can be. And so a lot of that is like a network of networks. So for spouses, it's interconnecting other spouses so they can work through deployments or PCSs, or they can just reach out to somebody who's maybe gone through a deployment, with her husband before, or spouse, and not really knowing what questions to ask, or maybe they're new to the area. So it's kind of that network of networks for spouses, and we call that Steel Mags. In addition to that, we have a whole offering for scholarships. Scholarships is obviously a very important part of our mission and our vision, and expanding and growing that is a critical part of my initiative and undertaking, and what I hope to achieve here at the foundation. In addition to that, we have various awards, and we also support mental health and wellness as well for the families. So it's not uncommon that you see children really struggling in certain areas of life. And if TRICARE or other aspects, or there are resource shortages for those individuals' families, whether they're active duty or not, we will come to the aid to that family to the best of our abilities. And we will pull together a coalition to support people as well. I always say that, the warfighter can't go off to war if things aren't settled at home to the best of their ability. And so we want to try to make sure that they know that we have their families back when they're downrange. And we mean that wholeheartedly. And that's why all of our programs are all interwoven into one another, and they work as a cohesive unit. And that's exactly the force multiplier mindset that a Green Beret takes forward when they're embedding into indigenous populations, or they're supporting our allies across the world, is to be that force multiplier. So we take that same mentality and that same ethos forward in our work each day. And then the last two really is one of the hardest ones to talk about is our Gold Star and Surviving Families program. And those programs are there and intact for families when they lose their loved one in combat. And it is one of those challenges that we see in combat or training that the special forces community bore the brunt of casualties in the global war on terror as it related to SOF, and it's because of the way our Green Berets fight and how they embed into indigenous populations. But also too, it's because they push it to the limits. And they are force multipliers themselves. Many people don't know this, but when a 12-man ODA comes together, they have the ability to split up into two groups of six. Those two groups of six are a mighty and fierce fighting force, and will oftentimes push the limits of their own abilities, and working with indigenous populations. We saw that in Afghanistan on countless occasions. But because of that, they are also the tip of the spear. And so we've talked about that at great length as a foundation. How can we be sure that we honor their legacy and what they've sacrificed for this country for people that they've never met before? A lot of people don't understand why an individual would be willing to sign up and serve their, our nation. And the reality is because our nation is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And they're willing to die for people that they've never met. They're willing to die for freedoms that they hold near and dear to their heart and that they know that we hold near and dear to our heart. And so in the effort to try to expand that, we want to make sure that the warfighter is well aware that when they go down range, that God forbid if the worst case scenario happens, that we're there to support their spouse and their children for the years to come. And just because that instance or that situation may occur, it doesn't mean that that family is no longer part of our community. We have an incredible former board member, Kristen Simpson Anderson, is a Gold Star spouse herself. She helps those families navigate those waters because you can imagine how challenging those waters are. We have another teammate, Bethany McDonald, also a Gold Star spouse, just an incredible human being. I mean, these are people who are bedrocks of our community that are still part of our community. And the foundation supports those families to the best of our abilities. And if we can't do it, we'll become force multipliers ourselves. And we find somebody to do it and to help them as well. And then the last is the transition. I touched a little bit upon this, but really it's really an encompassing program called the Next Ridgeline program. And that helps the individual Green Beret who's beginning to navigate their departure from active duty service and kind of figuring out what that next spark is or what that next team will look like. And what does that mean? So there's a whole process that goes along with it. There is what I mentioned earlier, the Veteran Administration's what we call the VA claims analysis and support and advocacy. Our team of VSOs, our veteran service officers, are actively working each day to help manage and facilitate those claims to make sure that gentlemen receive the best rating as possible. And the rating is articulated in a way that the person reviewing the claim on the back end of the VA understands it. Green Berets are not and have not been understood for some time. We see that, and we saw that also too with conventional forces coming out of Vietnam, where they were coming back and they weren't getting the ratings that they were supposed to from the Veteran Administration. And that was a challenge because those individuals fought for this country. They supported our rights and defended our Constitution, and they weren't being rated correctly. And that's one of the things that makes our organization so unique. Our VSOs will go back and review those claims and those ratings. And so most recently, a veteran from the Vietnam era received a check of over $100,000 in back pay. And now people say, wow, that's fantastic, right? And it is fantastic. I mean, we should celebrate that. But this is what I say to counter that. It's kind of ridiculous that individual had to live for how many years post his service before he finally got that award, right? How many times did that individual possibly struggle with bills in the wintertime or when the furnace went, or sending his kid to college, or maybe he lost his job because there were layoffs? There's countless examples of that. And so we as an organization, as a foundation, want to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen. That's why our team of men and women work so tirelessly to get those claims right. We have incredible success with that program, incredible success in relationships with the individuals at the VA, but our work is not even near complete in that area. And we are looking to expand that program into a new program called the Next Ridgeline 2.0 that will marry the claims process with a full life evaluation, as well as a positioning life evaluation for the family unit to figure out what you want your life to look like after service. It's a big change. And so we're going to pull in partners, and we've been securing partnerships and support for this program. And ultimately, it will bring them through a new journey and a new course while they're waiting for their VA claim to say, this is what I want to do. And we're going to be a part of that so we can continue to check in, because we firmly believe that if we can get transition right, we can likely put a massive dent in the risk of individuals' lives of taking their own life or going down a road of substance abuse and alcohol abuse because they can't find the right job or they're not happy in the right job. So we're going to work to make sure that they get the right job and that they feel fulfilled and they're enjoying their work. In addition to that, It's also to market to the entire corporate world. And I would say the call to action here is for people to start seeing individuals who come out of the regiment special forces as incredible candidates for incredible leadership positions. Most of these men are multilingual. They've been in multiple countries. They know how to travel well. They're light on their feet. It's a remarkable ability to be adaptable and overcome challenges. And we see this in the workforce today alone. It's challenge after challenge. And I say to the corporate community, who better to lead your division or your team or your company for that matter than a Green Beret, because they've done it for their entire time in service. So that's kind of the foundation at a long-winded approach, but happy to chat a little bit more about it if you have any questions on it.
Yeah, you said you've talked to people from Vietnam to active duty now. What is it like hearing their stories?
Oh, it's inspiring. Um, the Green Berets have a mentality of being a quiet professional. And but when you have the chance to sit down with them and talk with them and share a beer, or, share a meal, it's remarkable the stories that they share. It's remarkable the things that they've overcome, the things that they've achieved in life during service and then in life after service. Um, it is, I've always said that the mark of a nation is how you treat your elderly and how you treat your veteran population. And it's one of the reasons why I went into the nonprofit space, and it's why I spent so much time in hospice and palliative care. And it's why now I'm spending so much time in the military veteran space. And they are, even with the challenges that they've had to surmount oftentimes by themselves or with their families to overcome challenges because the support systems haven't been the best in the past, they are still proud Americans. They love their country. They love their family. It's a remarkable generation, whether it's the Vietnam era or all the way up through GWAT or those who are serving today. It's really just an honor to be able to say that I'm a collaborator within that community, because those are individuals that are absolutely remarkable. We were just at the Army Navy game. I was talking to a couple of them who had served in the Vietnam era, and we were saying very casually that this is the highlight of the nation, in my opinion, because it brings together multiple generations.
Yeah.
And all people who have seen the importance of what we as a country set out to do in 1776. And it was just so storied because it was the 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party. And, I always say that it's a very small group of people that choose to go the special forces route in the Army. And it was still the same small group of people who decided to get together in a tavern in Boston and talk about what could be if only they had enough courage to do it. And thankfully, those men did it in 1776. And thankfully today, we're able to sleep at night because a select few of men and women are continuing to do it in a very specialized fashion, right? They are not conventional war fighters. They're unconventional war fighters living in unconventional times. But you can rest easy to know that the Green Berets are there, and if you ever get a chance to sit down with one and talk and hear their stories, it's just absolutely remarkable.
So where do you want to see the foundation, say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. It's interesting. I get that question often. And, I would say I would love to see it continue to operationalize and enhance our efficiencies and our effectiveness of being able to reach the communities. We have a lot of great work ahead of us. I'd also say that the times that are before us are uncertain. We're living in a little bit of a 1939 moment. You don't have to look far. It's kind of like look to your right or look to your left, and you kind of hope that either one of them doesn't really get out of control with the situation that's going on in the Middle East or the Indo-Pac region or Eastern Europe. I mean, whoever thought there'd be war in Europe again? But there is. And so, there's kind of a two-prong approach that I take when I'm asked that question. I say, well, the forward-thinking part of me says we have to prepare for the next conflict. So when it comes, because we have Green Berets deployed to, multiple locations all over the world, they are oftentimes the tip of the spear. We have to be ready to answer that phone when that phone starts ringing, because the next conflict has started. The second part of that prong is, we have to continue to get stronger and leaner and meaner on our ability to raise more capital, to be able to build and strengthen our current program offerings and future offerings, because we have a generation of veterans who served 20 years in GWAT. Young men who joined on 18 X-ray contracts, who've now beginning to retire, still in great shape, still in a fighting force shape, but want to move on in the next part of their career. And we have to be able to be ready to support them in whatever comes their way. And I think there's a lot of unknown, right? We see a tremendous amount of SF guys dying from cancer, unacceptable.
Yeah.
We see a tremendous amount of guys dying from TBI, unacceptable. So as the foundation, the preeminent leader in the special forces space amongst benevolent organizations, we're going to start to tackle those issues, and we're going to start to tackle them in 2024.
How can people reach out and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say first start with greenberetfoundation.org. That's our website, recently redesigned. Just an awesome site, packed full of information and great videos. We have an awesome social media following, both on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You find most of my stuff that I'm talking about on LinkedIn, obviously trying to broaden the awareness of everyone in the corporate space about special forces and the Green Beret Foundation. And I'd also say, shoot us an email, info@greenberetfoundation.org. Or if you want to email me, charlie@greenberetfoundation.org. We are force multipliers ourselves, albeit in a different way than Green Berets. But we love to collaborate. We love to tell our story one-on-one. We love to tell it to larger groups. We have a lot of things to share, a lot of great stories of triumph and victories, and some stories that unfortunately resulted in tragedy, but we're trying to take those tragedies and turn them into opportunities. That's another angle that we take too when families come forward. Kat Marcanzano, Andy Marcanzano's mom, is a perfect example of that. And his sister, Michelle, they work tirelessly to spread awareness and to share Andy's story and trying to prevent that from ever happening again to another family or another Green Beret. So reach out on any of our social channels, take a look at us. There's info, there's a message button on our website. We want to hear from you. We want to tell you about why we're a worthy cause to support. And most importantly, we want to share with you and the greater community about the incredible work and the incredible history of the Special Forces community and those who continue to serve our great nation.